Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first Cooking with Plants class of 2025. This is Stocking Your Plant Forward Pantry. And before we get into some introductions, I just wanted to go over a couple housekeeping things to hopefully help make your experience a little bit easier. So we're using Microsoft Teams to stream and to record these classes. If you would like to have closed captioning for the classes, you can go up to the three dots that say More underneath them in the top right-hand section of your toolbar. If you're joining us from a tablet or a smartphone, you may not have access to these same icons. I apologize for that, but if you're joining us from a computer, just go to those three little dots, select More, select Language, and then you can turn on live captions and you should see text populate on your screen right away. You are all muted and your cameras are off, not because I don't want you to participate in this class. I highly encourage you to participate by asking questions in the Q&A section, which there are two kind of overlapping bubbles. That's an icon on the top right of your toolbar that says Q&A. Select that, type your question in there. I will ask that if you're going to enter a question, please make sure that it's relevant to the whole group, and I will do my best to answer it. If I cannot answer it within the time we have in class, I will try my best to shoot you an email, or you are welcome to email lifestylemedicine@trinity-health.org, and I will respond to your question there. If you're a Trinity Health colleague, you get points to keeping your insurance premiums low just by attending this class. So email lifestylemedicine@trinity-health.org that you attended this class, and I will help you get your points. All right, now that we have that out of the way, it's nice to meet you. I know we can't see each other's faces right now, and I apologize for that. But again, that's to help keep our recording clean. And I really hope that you will engage with the Q&A and send emails about feedback on the classes or any questions that you might have. I'm Kelly Wilson. I lead this class series. I am part of the lifestyle medicine team here at Trinity Health. And I'm a registered dietitian who's also board certified in lifestyle medicine. And if you're unfamiliar with lifestyle medicine, it's a medical subspecialty that focuses on disease prevention, treatment, and reversal through 6 key pillars. A whole food, plant-forward dietary pattern is one of those pillars, and that's what we focus on in this class series. But there are 5 other pillars, and those are regular physical activity, so daily movement, moving our bodies, stress reduction, so finding positive ways to manage our stress, restorative sleep, healthy relationships, so positive social connection, and avoiding risky substances. So all of those 6 evidence-based pillars are what we use here in our lifestyle medicine practice in all of our classes and one-on-one patient appointments to support our patients towards full health. This class, like I said, focuses on that whole food, plant-forward dietary pattern pillar. And this is a culinary class, right? So tonight, we're not going to do any cooking. We're just going to do a lot of show and tell, but all of these classes will cook through some plant-forward recipes. I firmly believe that everyone can cook. If you're new in the kitchen and you're feeling a little scared about where to start, that's totally okay. And I'm really glad that you're here. But I promise you, by the end of participating in even just one of these classes, you will leave with some skills that will make it easier for you to add some of these health promoting foods to your daily meals. Recipes are always suggestions. I'm going to give you a lot of different recipe ideas. If you don't have an ingredient, if there's something that you haven't quite developed a taste for yet, that's okay. Swap it out with something that you do have on hand or that you do enjoy. And if you get stuck with how to swap something out, you can contact me and I'm happy to help you figure that out. also encourage you to start with what you know and adapt. If you love tacos and you're used to eating, beef tacos, maybe you're cutting the beef with some lentils or you're switching over to lentil tacos because that's a food that's a little bit more familiar to you. And then be kind to yourself. If you're new on this plant forward journey, change takes time, and that's totally okay and understandable. It takes time for all of us, right? And I highly encourage you to break down whatever goal you have set for yourself for participating in this class into small, bite size, and pun intended, pieces, because small change consistently followed over time is what leads to big habit change. Okay. And then, like I said, be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself. We're really focused on persistent progress versus being perfect. Okay. This is the overview of this series. All of our classes are streamed live 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the second Wednesday of the month. You can see here our schedule for the year. You're welcome to join all of these classes. I would love that. Or you could pop in and out as your schedule allows. These classes are also recorded. So if you can't join us live, you can watch the recording when you have the time. You can scan that QR code if you haven't registered for this series yet, and that will take you to the registration page so that you get the emails with the link to sign up for class. This class focuses on general nutrition content. So if you have a specific health condition, some of what we talk about may or may not apply to you. If you are newly diagnosed with a chronic health condition, I highly encourage you to speak with a registered dietitian and your physician before making really significant nutrition changes. Now, that being said, a lot of the foods that we talk about, these whole plant forward foods, are good for most folks to add to your plate. But if you have a question, feel free to reach out. And if you need to connect with a registered dietitian or a physician, we can help with that as well. So feel free to email that email address that you see right there on the screen. Now, tonight's class, we're going to talk about what whole food, plant forward dietary pattern even means. You've heard me mention that a few times, so we're going to break that down so that we're all on the same page going forward in all of our other classes. I'll also be recording a video that goes into a little bit more details that I'll share after class that you can watch on your own time. Then we're going to do some show and tell, and we're going to talk about some of the basic kitchen tools that you might want to have on hand that are going to help make the recipes that we're focusing on in our subsequent classes come together in a snap. Similarly, we're going to also talk through some of the foods that you might want to have on hand in your pantry and in your freezer and fridge that having those things on hand will help pull together really fast, easy meals. Okay, a lot of the ingredients we're going to talk through are things that we'll use quite often in some of our recipes in our other classes. And I see that there's a hand raised. If you could put your question in the Q&A feature, that would be great. That's where I'm going to be able to answer your question if you have a question. All right, so let's go into this whole food, plant forward dietary pattern. And that's a mouthful. What the heck do I mean when I'm talking about that? So you see here on the screen an image of a plate. You might be familiar with the USDA My Plate. This is just a version of it that kind of takes it a step further. Okay, and really what we're talking about when we're talking about whole food, plant-based, is summarized in this bolded phrase here that you see on your screen of eat real food, mostly plants. Okay, and this plate here, you see lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. You see some plant-based proteins like beans and lentils, nuts, seeds, tofu, some whole grains, spices, and a reminder to drink lots of water. Now, this plate has a lot of raw food ingredients on it, and I'm not advocating for a raw food diet. Those are just the pictures that the American College of Lifestyle Medicine selected for this image. We're going to cook all the things in this class, and cooking is helpful for our bodies to be able to absorb certain nutrients. So definitely, we're not saying that you have to eat a raw food diet. What I am encouraging you is to focus on those real foods. So those are foods that have short ingredients lists, and they're words that you can pronounce and recognize as foods that you would have in your kitchen. These are also foods that are in the form as close to the farm or nature as possible. Okay, so they're minimally processed. You can think of something like an apple or applesauce without added sugar. The apple is not processed, it's in its whole form. Applesauce is minimally processed. We could take that apple a step further and turn that into a McDonald's handheld apple pie. That's a highly processed food, and I would call that more like a food-like substance instead of food. So we're focusing more on that low sugar applesauce and the apple versus that McDonald's handheld pie, if that makes sense. Another great example would be beans or tempeh versus our processed veggie burgers. Okay, so again, the tempeh, the beans, those are our real food, and those processed veggie burgers, like a garden or a Boko burger, would be more like a food-like substance. Okay. You may have picked up that we use the language dietary pattern versus diet. So this is looking at, like, a pattern is a trend over time, right? So again, we're not looking for perfection. If you're not ready to go 100% plant-based, if that's not what is needed for managing your health condition, that's okay. We're just trying to encourage you to eat as many plants as possible and trend towards that whole food, plant forward dietary pattern. Okay. And we don't use the word diet because this is a lifestyle choice, right? It's not a one-time quick fix fad that we're all just starting for the new year. All right. Why plants? Okay. Kind of understand a little bit of what I mean when I say whole food plant forward, but why are we focusing so much on plants? One of the main things is that plants are the only source of fiber in our diet, and there is a ton of research to show the benefits and value of adding fiber into our diet. It helps keep us full, which can help us from overeating, and just helps us feel satisfied with the foods that we're eating, right? It can help with blood sugar regulation. So it improves something called insulin resistance. Insulin is that really important compound that helps blood sugar get into our cells. It keeps our blood sugar stable. It can balance our cholesterol levels. So there's something called soluble fiber, which can literally act like a sponge and kind of mop up excess cholesterol in our blood. That can decrease our risk for cardiovascular disease. Fiber has also been shown to decrease the risk for certain types of cancers, and it keeps our digestive system working regularly, which gives us good poops, right? Everybody likes to have good poops. So eating lots of fiber can keep our digestive system working properly. Also feeds the good bacteria in our gut that produce a whole host of beneficial compounds for brain health, for immune function, for reducing overall inflammation in our bodies. Fiber is super important. The minimum recommended fiber intake, you can see that on your screen, 25 grams a day for women, 38 grams a day for men. For reference, an apple or a pear is about 4 grams of fiber. Okay, and I'm sharing these numbers just for reference, not necessarily that you have to track those numbers. All right, it looks like there's a question in the Q&A, so I'm just gonna pop over there real quick. Oh, I am so sorry, Colette, that your screen is black. Try adjusting your view in the top toolbar. And if that doesn't work, this recording will be shared and you'll be able to see the slides there. And Hiba, if you have a question, please drop it in the Q&A and I will make sure we address it there. Okay, so we talked about fiber. The next thing that adds a lot of value to these plant foods are phytonutrients. And phyto means plant. So these are compounds that are only found in plant foods that can decrease the risk of chronic disease because they positively influence our genes in a health promoting direction. A lot of these phytonutrients can tamp down our body's inflammatory response, and they can ramp up our body's ability to produce antioxidants, which are compounds that can kind of put out or neutralize free radicals. And you can think of free radicals, they're the compounds that are responsible for when you see rust or you see the browning on an apple after you take a bite. That's oxidation from free radicals. Antioxidants prevent that internal rust or browning of our cells from happening. So they're preventing that damaging effect inside our bodies. Plant foods, we want to make sure, you can see this picture here. There's a lot of different colors, right? So each of these colors is connected to a different phytonutrient that is conferring health benefits to us, okay? So eating a variety of different foods, I like to encourage folks to kind of eat the rainbow. So I always joke that I'm trying to steal that catchphrase back from Skittles and make it a whole food plant-based catchphrase. We really want to eat the rainbow because we're getting a variety of those phytonutrients that all have different benefits when we're doing that. Another way besides tracking the rainbow on your plate or throughout the week that you can, another tool that you can use to keep track of the variety that you're getting is to count the number of different plant foods on your plate. So it's recommended that we aim for about 30 different plant foods every week to ensure that we're getting the variety of different nutrients that our body needs. Now, that's the ultimate goal. And if you're not there yet, it's okay. Just start where you are and see if you can challenge yourself to increase even slightly. All right, so I already started to talk about this a little bit, but if this is new to you, if plant forward eating is new and a lot of the foods we're going to talk about are new to you, totally fine. Just start one step at a time. And remember that research shows that small, consistent habit change is what leads to long-term behavior change and lasting results. So instead of trying to completely overhaul your entire routine when it comes to cooking and nutrition, start with one thing that you can do differently. Okay, the research shows that that is the best way to approach long-term behavior change. Okay, so maybe it's counting the plant foods on your plate throughout the entire week and then challenging yourself to add one more or two more the next week. Or maybe it's adding beans 3 times a week to your plate, or simply just challenging yourself to try a new vegetable the next time you go to the grocery store. Pick what works for you, start small, and just do it. And then again, be patient with yourself and be persistent. We often think that change is this linear thing, and it's not. It's a roller coaster. We go back and forth, we slide down, we have successful days. The most important thing is that whatever happens, you just keep pointing yourself in the direction of your goals, and you be patient and kind to yourself and persistent. We talked a little bit about beginning with what you like and what you know. Start with foods and recipes that are some of your favorites and think about ways that you can sneak some of these plant food ingredients we're going to talk about into those recipes. And then as you add more of these plant foods to your plate, make sure you watch your water intake. So we talked about fiber and how important fiber is. It's in a lot of these plant foods that we're going to focus on in our classes. As you start eating more of these plant foods, make sure that you're increasing your water intake to help avoid any discomfort or digestive distress, okay? So focus on that hydration. If you're feeling excited and you want some resources to help you start diving into this plant forward eating, obviously this class is a great place to be, and I'll share a resource website with you after class that has some additional tips and resources. These cookbooks and these blogs that are listed here are all plant forward and have really wonderful recipes. So you can take a screenshot of this and use that as a reference if you're looking to invest in some cookbooks or you want to go online and explore some recipes. With that, I am going to stop sharing. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, so we are going to get into the show and tell portion of the evening. We're going to start with kitchen equipment, and I don't have with me measuring cups and measuring spoons, but those are things that we definitely want to make sure we have stocked in our kitchen. In addition to those, we also want to make sure we've got some good pots and pans. So this is a 3-quart saucepan. A 3-quart, a 4-quart saucepan are great for making our pasta sauces, for boiling our pasta, for steaming vegetables, making a small batch of chili or soup. This is stainless steel. In there, I have this steamer basket. This is not a must, but it is a nice thing to have. And these steamer baskets, they open kind of like a flower. And you would put your vegetable that you're wanting to steam right in that basket, close it up, and then it just sits nicely in our pot. You'd add about 1 inch of water in here, and then you just steam until it's the softness that you desire. And let's see. Looks like people are having a hard time seeing the screen. If you click on the view, it's the little square that looks like a window almost. Click on that, you'll see a drop-down menu, then click on speaker, and you should be able to see me highlighted. And I will spotlight myself and see if that helps as well. So you should be seeing me highlighted right now. And let's see. All right. Hopefully that works. If that didn't, please drop another note in the Q&A and I will try to readjust. Okay, so pots, pans. Okay, we've got this is a non-stick skillet. Okay, this is 12-inch. Okay, some people couldn't see the presentation. I'm really sorry that you were having some challenges with the presentation. Like I said, the recording will be shared out after class. So if you weren't able to see the slides, you can just watch that first 20 minutes of the class and be able to see the slides there as well. And then I'll send the resources listed in my follow-up email as well. Okay. So this is a nonstick skillet. Okay, you can use nonstick as long as you're using tools like wooden spoons or silicone spatulas like this or this, because they are not going to scratch that surface. That's the most important thing if you're going to use nonstick pans, to make sure that you're taking care of them properly, not putting them in the dishwasher, you're washing them by hand, you're using tools that aren't going to scratch the surface, because we don't want the chemicals that are underneath that coating kind of leaching into our food. If you're worried about using nonstick pans, I would recommend using stainless steel. They're really forgiving, and if you use them properly, they function fairly like nonstick. You could also use a cast iron pan when those are well seasoned. They are fairly nonstick as well. The only thing with those is they're a little bit heavier than the stainless steel pan. So you could, if you want to get a workout while you're cooking too, they're a great tool. But if you have concerns about upper body strength or moving around a heavier pan, maybe focus on the stainless steel or the regular nonstick. Okay, other really important tool is a knife. This is a chef's knife. Okay, this is a fairly long chef's knife. You just want to make sure that whatever knife that you're using, it feels comfortable for your hands. So a chef's knife has kind of this rounded tip so that we can do a rocking motion when we're cutting. And we'll do a lot of knife skills demonstration throughout this series. So you'll hopefully become really comfortable with using this tool. We hold our chef's knife by pinching it between our thumb and our first finger and wrapping our 3 remaining fingers around that blade. Now, that can be kind of an awkward grip for a lot of people when you're first learning it. So I encourage you to just kind of practice and try to get comfortable. This grip really protects your elbow and your wrist from overuse and fatigue and allows you to use the physics of your arm a little bit more effectively to more efficiently and safely cut vegetables. So this is a chef's knife. Definitely want to invest in one of these if you don't have that. You don't have to have super expensive knives. The most important thing is that they are sharp. Okay, so you could start with a basic set, say from like Cuisinart, for example, and as long as you're maintaining the sharpness and you're keeping that blade, you're not putting it in the sink, you're not putting it in the dishwasher, you're using a honing blade every once in a while, you'll be totally fine with that. And then if you want to invest in more expensive knives later, great. This is a paring knife. Okay, this is used for taking the tops off of a strawberry, for coring out the center of a tomato, for maybe peeling some ginger or the eyes out of a potato. This is another knife that you want to make sure that you have in your kitchen. Okay, a knife that might be nice but is totally not necessary is as long as you have sharp knives, this is a serrated knife. So you can see it's kind of got these sawtooth edges here. This is for sawing into crusty breads like a sourdough, or for slicing through something that has really thin skin like a tomato, or we don't want to like smush the tomato. The serrated blades help us kind of gently slice through that without smushing it. A box grater is also another helpful tool. We've got various different settings around here for grating vegetables, or you can use this fine setting for zesting and grating things like garlic or ginger. This is really helpful to have on hand for adding a lot of different textures to our dishes. So recommend that, and these are fairly inexpensive. Another nice to have but not necessary tool, this is a potato masher. So when we cook beans and we make things like refried beans, or we make guacamole, this can be a very helpful tool for mashing. A wire whisk is really valuable for when we make salad dressings, to help incorporate all of those ingredients together. Can opener, I just like these standard, non-motorized can openers, but whatever you have to open cans works. We will use canned foods in this class, and we'll talk about some of those in a minute. This is another nice to have, but don't have to have tool. Also fairly inexpensive. I think they're about like $13 or $14 on Amazon. This is a citrus juicer. So when we make a lot of our dressings, we'll be using limes, lemons, other citrus. And what you do is you cut your citrus fruit in half, you place the cut side down here, and you smush this down, and the juice comes out of these holes on the bottom, but the seeds and the rest of the citrus fruit stay up in here. tongs. So these are silicone tipped tongs that can be helpful for when we're cooking things like greens to easily flip them. Also really helpful when we're sauteing things like tofu or tempeh, which are soy proteins, to help kind of brown each side. And then finally, a good vegetable peeler. I highly recommend these Y-shaped vegetable peelers. There's a bright, colorful set on Amazon for like 14 bucks for 3 of them, so they're totally not expensive. This is one from OXO, Good Grips, which is really helpful for, they're ergonomically designed and they have these little grippy things on them so they won't slip. I like the Y vegetable peelers because they give you a little bit more control when you are working with the veggies that you're peeling. So that's our basic kitchen equipment. On the class resource website, there is a list that will go into more details about those tools and some other tools that you might want to have on hand. Now we're going to shift gears and talk about food for your pantry. I mentioned that we're talking about these different ingredients because when our pantry is well stocked, it makes the question of, oh crap, what's for dinner, a lot easier to answer quickly. So let's start with some proteins, okay? So first, we got some dry beans. These are pinto beans. Well, lots of different kinds of dry beans out there. They take a little bit longer to cook, anywhere from an hour to 3 hours, depending on the kinds of beans and if you choose to soak them. But they can be a really affordable source and a high quality source of plant-based protein. When we're cooking beans, if you're somebody that, and we'll talk about that, this in our beans class a little bit more, but if you get a little bit of digestive distress from beans, one of the tools to help kind of ease that discomfort is cooking our beans with sea vegetables like kombu. So this is an example of that. You can put that in your pot, and also a great source of iodine. Other dry plant proteins, shelf stable, we've got lentils. These are brown lentils, and these are red lentils. The red lentils cook in about 10 minutes and kind of turn an almost mashed potato-like consistency. The brown lentils cook in about 20 minutes and they hold and retain their structure and shape. So these are really great for adding to tacos, to pasta sauces, whereas the red lentils are really good for using in soups and stews and as side dishes. We've got tempeh. This is something that you would keep in your refrigerator, and we're going to work with this in our proteins class. This is a soy food protein, really good to have on hand for quickly making some plant-based tacos or a stir fry. They even have some already marinated ones, which are really nice and convenient. So again, if you're new to tempeh and other soy foods and you aren't quite sure how to season it, maybe try one of these already seasoned options and start there. All right, you can also, if you're not ready to dive into dry bean cooking, there are these packets of beans available in a lot of grocery stores. These are shelf stable, they're already cooked. They are a bit higher in sodium, so if that is a concern for you for blood pressure or other reasons, you would just want to make sure you're watching what other foods you're combining with this and what else you're eating throughout the day. For your freezer, a good protein option to have on hand is frozen edamame. So this is a soybean. It's a green soybean, and it's been shelled out of the pod. This makes stir fry come together really quickly. If you have a bag of, say, frozen stir fry veggies, you have your bag of your frozen edamame, you dump those together in a pan, and you can make a quick sauce with this, which is called coconut aminos. It's a substitute for soy sauce that's lower in sodium and has a little bit of sweetness to it. And then maybe you throw in some other seasonings like red pepper flakes or ginger powder, and voila, you have a dinner, like one skillet meal that came together in 5 minutes. So coconut aminos, great to have on hand for fast flavor. Other ingredients for fast flavor, vinegars. So this is an apple cider vinegar, but there are many vinegars. There's white wine vinegar, red wine vinegar, balsamic vinegar, white balsamic vinegar. All of those can add a really nice acidic flavor to salad dressings. We can use these when we're cooking greens to kind of add some brightness and sparkle. So highly encourage stocking up on some different types of vinegars that you enjoy. Similarly, having some citrus, whether that's fresh limes and lemons that you keep stocked in your fridge or some bottled juice. I have both at home. This again can be used for salad dressings, for finishing off our veggie dishes to counteract some of the bitterness that we might taste in some foods and really give them a little bit of a sparkle. There was a question about coconut aminos and where to find them. I often find them in the Asian food section of the grocery store next to where the soy sauce would be. And a tip, if you're trying to find something in the grocery store that's new to you and you use a smartphone, if you download the app for your grocery store, oftentimes you can search for different ingredients, different foods in the app, and it will tell you where in the store that item is if you can't find it. I've used that a lot and it's been extremely helpful. But again, typically in the like Asian food section of the grocery store. Also having some mustard on hand, really helpful for when we're making salad dressings or trying to zhuzh up a sandwich. And then finally, another really good flavor tool to have on hand is nutritional yeast. So this is deactivated yeast that typically has B vitamins added to it. And it's got kind of a savory, cheesy flavor. So you can use this on, let's say, popcorn or put it on top of your pasta sauce to get a little bit of that cheesiness. I use it in dressing sometimes, or when I'm making faux mac and cheese, it can be helpful there. This tends to be in a lot of different places in various grocery stores. I find this in my grocery store where the Parmesan cheese is, the shelf stable like Parmesan cheese. Sometimes it's in the spice section, sometimes it's in the health food section of the grocery store. So if you can find someone who works at your grocery store, ask them, or like I said, use that app to see if you can search to find where it is in yours. All right, other things. So I mentioned when we were talking about whole food, plant forward eating, grains, whole grains are an important piece of that. A whole grain, and we'll talk about this more next month, is a grain that has all three components. It's got the bran, the endosperm, and the germ. So it's got all of its vitamins and minerals and fiber intact. We're looking for, if we're buying packaged foods, we're looking for it to say whole grain. A good indicator is also this whole grain stamp that you see here. And then when we turn it around, and we look at that ingredients list, the first ingredient should be whole grain, insert whatever grain it is. So this happens to be rye. It could be whole grain wheat. It could be whole grain oats. But we want that to be the first ingredient, okay? And then whenever we're looking at a packaged food, remember I said we want to make sure we can pronounce all of these ingredients and recognize them as real whole foods. So this meets that criteria. The ingredients list is really short. Another tip for helping us find a whole grain is to look at the fiber content here. Okay, so typically our whole grain foods are going to be higher in fiber than our processed refined grain counterparts. Okay. So the whole grain crackers are good to have stocked on hand. Another whole grain option are brown rice cakes, like these ones here. Great for slapping a little bit of nut butter on there for a quick snack. We can have pastas. So a whole grain pasta, the ingredients in this one is just 100% whole grain wheat. Or this is a bean pasta, so not a grain, but the beans are a protein. This is our garbanzo bean pasta. There's lentil pastas. These make really good protein dense pasta options as well. So you're getting a lot of fiber from them because beans are one of the best fiber sources in our diet. And then you can have some dry grains. So this is buckwheat. If you see here, and we'll talk about this a little bit more next month, but they're almost little like tricorn hats, kind of these little pyramid shaped grains. They cook in 20 minutes, 1 part water to, 2 parts water to 1 part grain, and they make a really nice, savory, nutty, almost floral side dish. You also have quinoa. So that's how we pronounce this word. Well, it's like quinoa, but it's quinoa. And it comes in red, white, brown, all sorts of different colors. They are all whole grains. This also takes about 20 minutes to cook, and you do 1 part of the grain to 2 parts of the water. And then we have millet. So this is another very fast cooking whole grain. It's kind of yellowish, round little beads. Cooks in about 15 minutes, 1 part millet, 2 parts water, boiling water. Those are our whole grains. In our shelf-stable pantry, good to have veggie broth, so low sodium veggie broth to make soups and stews come together really quickly. Canned pumpkin can be a really nice high fiber, high vitamin A addition to baked goods or to oatmeals. Canned fruits and vegetables, totally fine to have on hand. Our canned veggies, we want to look for ones that are no salt added. So this is no salt added, and I go and I look at my ingredients list, and it's just spinach and water. Okay, so again, for a really fast in a pinch meal, our canned veggies can come in handy, or if we don't have access to refrigeration, really great. For our fruit, same kind of rules apply. I'm looking for the fruit in its own juices with no sugar added. If it says no sugar added on the front, you still want to be careful because sometimes they'll be sneaky and they'll add artificial sweeteners. So turn it around, look at that ingredients list and make sure it just says the fruit and then juice. Okay, this also has ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C added to prevent browning. Having tomato products on hand is really helpful for adding umami, which is that savory kind of rich flavor to dishes. You can have, these are whole tomatoes. You can have tomato sauce, pasta sauce. If you're purchasing pasta sauce, just look for ones that are low sodium, if that's something that you need to be focused on, that are made with olive oil only as the oil source and that don't have any added sugar. A lot of pasta sauces are a sneaky place where sugar is added. So just be mindful of that and be sure to choose ones that don't have added sugar. Having olives can be a nice way to add some kind of cheesy like flavor, especially these Castelvetrano olives. I like these as a replacement for feta cheese in recipes because they're salty and they're buttery. Again, if you need to be mindful of your sodium, these would be a not all the time, every day food, but you could have a few sprinkled in through whatever dish that you're making. So these can be good in pasta. I like them in salads often. We can also have dried mushrooms. So these are dried shiitake mushrooms. They hydrate in water and warm water in about 10 or 15 minutes. We're getting a lot of good fiber and antioxidants from these mushrooms. They can be a nice thing to just quickly add into a soup or a stew that we're making without having to have fresh mushrooms on hand. Let's see what else do we have over here. Oh, we've also got, these are some raw pumpkin seeds, really great source of protein and magnesium. So having a variety of nuts and seeds on hand, great for snacks, great for adding some crunch and different textures to bowls or to the tops of your salad. Highly recommend that you are looking for options that are raw, or if they're roasted in like a sunflower oil. It's not a canola or a soybean or a cottonseed oil. Ideally, they're just raw, no salt added. That's what we're looking for. So you can see that on here. It just says raw pumpkin seeds, also known as pepitas. All right, we've also got some canned soup. So this is an option. Again, you want to look at that ingredients list and make sure it's all words that you can pronounce. So this is just beans, water. We've got a bunch of different vegetables and spices, and that is it. This is not the only brand, and I should have said that at the beginning. All of the brands I'm holding up are not the only brands of good products. They're good examples of these various foods. It's just what I happen to have in the kitchen right now. So find what works for you. Oh, Susan, the name of the olives, they're called Castelvetrano. I'll hold that up for a second so that you can read them. I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of opinions on the types of olives that they prefer, but these are hands down my favorite because, like I said, they're buttery, and I think a good replacement if you're hankering for some feta cheese. Okay, so canned soup, again, for a fast, easy, shelf-stable meal. These are going to be higher in sodium. You can look for the low sodium options. That's always the best choice. Just make sure that if you can't find that you're managing your salt intake throughout the rest of the day if you're going to choose this option. All right, we got a few other things. So again, this is a plant forward class. We're talking about a plant forward dietary pattern. So one of the other things you want to have on hand is a non-dairy milk. I like these quart-size shelf-stable boxes because I personally can never go through a whole half gallon by myself. I often find these in the cereal aisle. So look there. And again, if you can't find it there, if it's not where it's located, check the dairy section of the grocery store, ask someone in the store, or use that app like I was talking about earlier to see if you can find it. This is a soy milk, perfectly acceptable option. And we'll talk a little bit more in other classes about some of the myths around soy, but soy in its whole form, like soy milk, tofu, tempeh, that edamame, perfectly healthy and fine to consume. You could have an oat milk. You could do a rice milk. I've seen hemp milk or hazelnut milk. The main things that when you're choosing whatever non-dairy milk that you're going to use, you just want to make sure, just like we talked about before, you can pronounce most of the words on the label. There aren't really gums or thickeners. It's just soybeans, water, or oats and water. Sometimes they'll add a little bit of like a sunflower oil. That can be okay, and you might see some vitamins like calcium added. That's totally fine as well, but you want to avoid options that have added sugar. That's really the big thing that we're looking to avoid, because a lot of these non-dairy milks will sneak in some added sugar. So you can go here to, let's see, our nutrition facts label. Hopefully you can see that. Under the total carbohydrates, you'll see fiber, total sugars, and then added sugars, okay? And we just want to make sure that that's at 0 or as close to 0 as we can find, okay? So that's our non-dairy milks. Having some different types of healthy fats helpful in our kitchen. Now, if you have cardiovascular disease, there may be some things that we want to do to reduce our total fat intake. But for most people, consuming some olive oil, which is really rich in polyphenols, can be totally healthy. We've also got some toasted sesame oil, which adds some nice flavor when we're making some kind of Chinese inspired recipes, or some Japanese inspired recipes. Our olive oil is great for finishing dishes or any cooking we're doing below 350 degrees. If we're going to grill some vegetables, if that's something we like to do, or we like to roast vegetables above 350 degrees, we want to use something like an avocado oil because that can stand up to much higher temperatures. So having an olive oil for dressings and finishing or light sauteing, and then avocado oil for higher temperature cooking can be really helpful. And then a sesame oil just for flavor if that's something you're interested in, but not a must. Other good healthy fats for some flavor and making dressings, tahini. So this is ground sesame seed paste. Okay, so just like peanuts are to peanut butter, sesame is to tahini. And tahini is used a lot in Mediterranean cooking. It's included in things like hummus. It's kind of creamy. It's a little bit bitter, but it makes a really nice non-dairy salad dressing. You can often find this in the like nut butter section of your grocery store. Or if you can't find it there and your grocery store has a world foods section, you might be able to find it in that world food section in the Mediterranean or Greek area. We've also got sunflower butter. You could use an almond butter. You could use a peanut butter. And this, again, just like our pasta sauces and our non-dairy milks, can be a place where sugar sneaks in. So you really want to make sure whatever nut or seed butter that you're buying is just like this one, roasted sunflower seeds and maybe a little bit of salt, or just that nut or seed. Okay, especially with the peanut butters, think there's a lot of unhealthy oils like a palm oil and sugar that kind of sneak in sometimes. So just look at your labels, be mindful of that. And these can be a really good protein source for a snack. It can be really nice mixed into some oatmeal. I also like making a lot of different stir fry sauces with these. So think of like a pad thai kind of sauce would be great with that. All right, so those are some basic things to have on hand. I want to talk also about some things that you could stock in your freezer that would be really helpful for just grab and go meals if you don't have time or energy to cook. So we already talked about having kind of frozen veggie mixes. Want to make sure that these don't have any sauces added to them. So it's literally just the veggies and you can add or make your own sauce. Some pre-made meals. Again, these are not the only ones out there, but just some examples for you. So this is Bird's Eye. This is their power blend. This is black beans, water, brown rice, quinoa, peppers, tomatoes. We got some spices in there. So again, those are all things that we can recognize as real food. Now, this has almost half of our fiber in here, so from those beans in particular, and it is slightly high in sodium. So again, you just want to be mindful of what you're combining this with and the other things that you're eating throughout the day. We've also got this Healthy Choice Simply Bowl. Another option, very similar kind of ingredients. This is a little bit lower in calories, so you might need to add some healthy fat like an avocado or have some other veggies that you throw into this to kind of beef up the sticking power of it. Another example from Bird's Eye. And then there's this other brand called Purple Carrot. Blue Zones Kitchen, you might be familiar with the Blue Zones movement. They also have some really good freezer stable, plant forward meals that are starting to pop up in grocery stores. So that would be another good option if you come across those. For quickly adding flavor, if you're just kind of starting to get familiar with spices and different seasonings, there are some pre-made seasonings that are okay. So this Simply Organic line, again, just like any packaged food, look at the ingredients list, make sure you're just seeing spices. But these combinations can kind of help you start to develop your palate and your sense of what sort of spices go together. This can be really good tossed on some cooked lentils or that tempeh that we talked about for making some really quick, easy tacos. This is one brand that makes these kind of stir fry simmer sauces. Again, this is just water, some soy sauce. It does have some sugar in it, not too much, and some other spices. So this could, again, be a good way to introduce yourself to some flavor combinations. So you could start with this, get comfortable with the different spices and seasonings, try out what you might like, and then maybe you invest in some of those individual spices and start playing with them in your own kitchen. Then finally, we've got, this is something that would go in your fridge. This is one of those salad kits. This one did not have dressing with it. I encourage you, if you're going to invest in stocking your fridge with some of these shortcut salad kits, try to opt for the ones that don't have the dressing or the added chips and things like that, because often those dressings are made with a soybean oil or a canola oil or something like that that we don't really want to consume too much of. So this is just the veggies. And then you can add some canned beans to it. You could add some olive oil and some lemon juice, maybe some of those pumpkin seeds or other nuts, and voila, you have a really fast, easy meal. So those are most of our ingredients. I see that there's one more question. Bonnie, grapeseed oil. Yes, you can use that as well for higher temperatures. Any other questions? It looks like we ended a few minutes early. I'm impressed. We covered a lot of ground. If there's any other questions, feel free to chat, throw those in the chat. And remember that I will be sending this recording after class. Please be patient and give me about a week to get that out to you. And I'll also share the class website where we've got a bunch of different recipes and information about plant forward cooking listed. So you can reference that at your leisure. And feel free, if we didn't get to your question or something comes up for you after this class, you can email lifestylemedicine@trinity-health.org. Oh, and Julie, yes, canned beans. Thank you so much for asking that question, because I did not have a can of beans. Canned beans are totally fine to use. If you can cook them from dry and that works in your schedule, great. If that's not realistic for you, use canned beans. Just make sure you're opting for low sodium or no sodium canned beans. If you can't find low sodium, when you go to drain them, just make sure you're rinsing them, and that'll help reduce the amount of sodium that's in the beans as well. But yes, definitely use canned beans if that's going to help you get them into your rotation. Yes, Bonnie, Satan is something that I would steer away from and focus more on things like this tempeh or tofu. Same thing with like textured vegetable protein. You'll see that marketed as a plant forward protein option. That's on the more processed side, and we want to focus more on our beans, lentils, our tempeh, our tofu. Wonderful. Oh, and then Susan coming through with a wonderful tip on a tool that we did not talk about, which is an Instapot or a pressure cooker. If you are wanting to experiment with the dry beans, the Instapot, you are totally right, Susan, does make the beans cook a lot faster. Like you can cook black beans in about 20 minutes in an Instapot, and on the stovetop, it might take a couple hours. So, well, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I really appreciate all of your attention and your engagement in the Q&A. I will let you get on with your evening, and I hope to see you next month and in future classes. Take good care and happy cooking.